Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek program at the J.C. Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the education assistant here at the Arboretum, and today we are in the Japanese garden because our Japanese garden is particularly beautiful this time of year. Honestly, it's beautiful every time of year because this garden is so full of evergreen plants, evergreen ground covers specifically, which is very convenient because we've got a program for you today all about evergreen ground covers. We've got our Director of Horticulture, Paige, right here, and our newest horticulturist, Villani, next to him, and they pulled together a presentation about some really awesome evergreen ground covers that'll stay beautiful and lovely all year round and really carry a lot of the weight in the garden. So it should be a wonderful program. Those of you watching this on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. And with the announcements out of the way, I'll pass things over to Evan and Greg to tell us a little bit about some evergreen ground covers.
Yes. So we very much like to brag about our plants in the garden, and not just the plants themselves, but their uses in the landscape. And something that we get asked about an awful lot are what are some ground covers that work well? And to take that up a bit of a notch and to extend that season of interest, what we want to talk to you today about are evergreen ground covers. So plants that kind of earn their keep. They're good, solid foundations in a strata of your garden that can typically be kind of hard to fill. We always have those kinds of gaps in our garden, those places where you've got just bare mulch. You want something to fill that in, but you've got shrubs, you've got trees, you've got other things that are kind of in the way. What are some things that would work well in those kinds of situations? And in this case, and for the sake of our discussion today, it's evergreen ground covers. There's a lot of things that you think about and that you see fairly common. What Evan and I have tried to do are not just pick things that we like, but pick things that aren't kind of the usual suspects. There's lots of things that you're going to find at garden centers that fill those gaps, but we pick some things that we really like that have nice textures, nice colors. Some of them flower at different times of the year, and they fit that niche in the garden. And the best way to do that with everything that's going on with us getting ready for Moonlight is we've got a PowerPoint that we're gonna share, and Evan and I will bounce back and forth with our favorites and give you plenty of time for some questions at the end. We try to, when we're picking things, we try to anticipate some of the questions you're gonna have to maybe kind of head those things off, but we welcome any and all things.
Always, please. So today, talking about evergreen ground covers. It was very well said.
Thank you.
And the first one that we would like to talk about, a classic, one that I cannot recommend enough. Ajuga reptans. This is carpet bugle, reptans meaning creeper. So this is a little guy who spreads along the ground through stolons. And one of the main reasons I love this plant is because you can recommend it in just about any situation. Any range from shade to sun, it'll take. It only needs, I've seen like 1/8 of an inch of soil. It needs very little to do what it does and do it well. And it'll form these nice clumps. So here in the bottom left, I believe that is black scallop, which we have in the garden. Nice dark clump. Above that, you can see a picture of the flowers. Some cultivars have slightly taller flowers. They're nothing crazy impressive, but it is a really nice little flush of late spring interest. And then a close-up of some of the foliage. And now, there are lots of other cultivars. There are some variegated ones, some gold ones. They haven't been as vigorous for me and for us in the garden, I think, so I wouldn't be as quick to recommend them. But I always recommend you going out and playing around with what you find interesting, because when you find the one that does good, and you can be thrilled about it, which is exciting. But one that is very vigorous, and if you're looking for a ground cover to fill in a lot of space quickly, is Caitlin's Giant. Yeah. It's one of the bigger leaved ones. It's very vigorous. And it's
great texture.
Yeah.
Really nice texture.
Nice curly leaf. And it's not something that's going to fight you if you want to take some of it back. It's a fast grower, but it's not you're not gonna kill yourself off over ripping some up.
They can be a little bit aggressive, which I don't think is a bad thing in that kind of situation. And to Evan's point, it's a little thing. So if it's not doing what you want, yank it out and give it to somebody else.
Yeah, aggressive is good in the context of mulch replacement. If you don't want to see mulch, If you don't want to keep mulching that same spot, these are the ones that are good for you.
Yep, awesome. So next one I want to talk about is Ophiopogon, japonicus, Gyoku Ryu. And I have not met, this is dwarf mondo grass, and I cannot think of a mondo grass that I don't like. Doing a little bit of research beforehand, I think there's close to 65 different species of Ophiopogon, and not all of them are going to be available from a garden perspective. I know a lot of collection trips that Mark has been on, that's always been something that he's looked at, is bringing some new ones back. I've been on a couple trips with some colleagues from Atlanta Botanic Garden and other places. That was always kind of high on the list. And this is a plant that I've grown, I've always liked it, but I've grown a stronger appreciation here for it because I love that texture. There are some straight species that are a little bit longer. It's very reminiscent. It looks a lot like Liripe, but it's a completely different genus. It has, you can see the picture here of that close-up, and then in the lath house, planted, nestled in amongst rocks. It's a great plant to fill in nooks and crannies. I always secretly, when I learned this plant in college, the first thing that went to my head was, I want a lawn just of that. And I always have that dream. And when I retire and have more time to focus on my yard, I may try that. I've even thought about, there's some that are black and darker foliaged, kind of weaving them together to form kind of channels and things. It's just a great textural plant that, if there is such a thing as a no maintenance plant, Ophiopogon is fairly close. You can kind of plant it and forget about it. Does best in shade, can take a little bit of sun, but this Asian related reared plant is a really, really good one for ground covers. Fits lots of different niches.
Have either of you ever seen it with the berries on it?
Yes.
Okay.
The berries are kind of a dark, kind of shiny, greenish blue.
Almost black.
Almost black. And some of if you look closely in the lath house, there's some remnants of that. The flowers on some of them are really nice too. I know some of the ones that Mark recently brought back had really nice long panicles of kind of bluish white flowers that were actually quite attractive. But I really like Ophiopogon. I just love that texture that it gives.
Sure. I've heard of those berries. I've seen pictures of those berries. I've never seen them in real life.
Really?
When we wrap up, we're going to go look.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
So this next one is thyme, a plant you may be familiar with. The awesome fragrant foliage on thyme is something you might be using in your cooking. And if you aren't, I would recommend it. So in the top left, you can see garden thyme. That's only going to get about a foot tall, maybe more. And it's also going to produce great stuff for you to use in cooking. The other thing about thyme is that it loves hot and dry. So it is a fan of those poor soils that are well draining. It does best, flowers best when it's getting that full summer heat, baking on those rocks or any dry area. And over here to the right, we have Thymus praecox. Elfin is the cultivar on that. And this is one that we have in the garden. Slow growing creeper, but really fantastic texture. Great for the rock garden, great for poor soils. And we're gonna try to get into as many ranges of microclimates as we can with these 15 that we chose, 14, 15 that we
Something
chose.
like that.
Something like that. And one other note about Thymus praecox and the other two plants that we mentioned are they can handle light foot traffic once established. Blake made a mention to us that we might talk about that because that is a question we receive often, is what's something that I can plant that's not a lawn that you can walk on? And the answer is nothing really, because when you walk, like this is why game trails exist in a forest. When you walk in a place, nothing can grow there. You're constantly compacting it. Not to mention, even on established plants, you're gonna inflict damage on them. So doing it occasionally is fine if it's just your garden. Like mondo grass can often be seen between stepping stones. As long as it's not you're stepping in the same place every time.
Sure.
It's never going to be a place where you can just send your kids out to play and expect it to look good afterwards. But these can handle light foot traffic. And there's one more later that will be the same. But I think that's the most.
Yeah, and I'm glad you remember that. Your younger memory is so much better than mine.
It's all the ice cream.
It's all the ice cream. We had a long conversation about that today. There are a series of plants that are available in the nursery trade called steppables, and they consist of thyme and some other things like that. And if it's just kind of you in your garden, I think to a very small degree, coming here, I don't know how many thousands of people will grace us during moonlight. There's not much that's going to hold up to that. Even turfgrass suffers.
Honestly,
from that.
I used to have dogs that they always ran in the same trail,
They do.
and they would run trails through the grass. Like you can't even walk on turf grass that much.
Yeah, my two little girls have very distinct paths in the garden. I always kind of know where they're going to be. But I'm glad you remember that, and we will get asked that question. So the next one I want to talk about this is a tongue fern, Pyrosia lingula limone.
Tongue twister too.
It is a tongue twister. I'm surprised I got that out. Don't ask me to do it again. Foliage. This is another plant that I've grown a strong affection for. Being here are the ferns. This is one that's always kind of been off my radar. I've never thought of using it in my own landscape, but it's got such great textures and it's such a unique plant. These like kind of dry situations and will grow where they kind of get the opportunity to kind of weep down. This one is in our lath house, and this is an introduction from our good friends down the road at Juniper Level Botanical Garden, Plant Delight Nursery. They got this from a chartreuse colored one, and it turned all yellow, but it's really, really pretty this time of the year. The pictures kind of don't do it justice. Has a very kind of rough texture about it, these strap-like leaves that it's known for, but it adds a lot to a garden. This is another one that works well, kind of tucked in nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the next shot shows a kind of a broader picture of it in the lath house itself. But I love the texture and that kind of sharp foliage and what it adds to a garden. Can take a little bit of sun, does better in filtered shade. Our lath house is kind of the best situation for it. And there are other species of this out there that do well, but I really, really like the color of this, and it's something I'm going to add to my garden in the not too distant future.
Tough plant too. This is here pictured in the lath house, but is limon the one that is also by the front gate?
Yes,
or is that another? Yeah.
It is, and that's a rough. Tough love part of the garden. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken,
Unpunched.
these are epiphytes in nature, so it makes a lot of sense that they can go extended periods of time without much moisture.
You'll see them. I want to say I saw some of these in Vietnam.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Growing in trees.
Totally.
On barks of trees. I find little nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
But it's whoever thought of this for a garden plant, good choice. It's a great one.
You never see a cranny without a nook, do you?
You never see a cranny without a nook. They're synonymous. That's another word I like.
Synonymous. So this is one I got a little carried away on, and actually I never actually spread out these pictures, so my apologies. We'll see if it's bearable. But Asarum. So there's a lot of Asarum species. I kind of fell in love with them when I went out with some people from Mountain Crop breeding program. Those wonderful people, and they took me around, and it was also the season for Asarum to be in flower, which you'll see on a later slide. And I was taken aback. I was like, it's so cute. You would never see it unless you peeked and you knew to look for it. But these just come in so many shapes and sizes and clumps and runners. And so they're gonna like your moist shade. You see them often kind of near-ish to rivers or watersheds where the organic material that they thrive around is evenly moist, gets moist often enough. They can handle periods of dryness, but they like more moisture. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. And we're just going to get into some of the beauty that we have here. So
you did get carried away.
I did. There's even another slide.
In a good way.
In a great way. So these are all, or have been, in the garden at some point. I took these off of our record system, but Asarum caudagerum is one we just propagated recently. It came out of the lath house. It has that fuzzy leaf. It's a little more tender in terms of you can squish it.
It's fleshy.
It's fleshy, thank you.
Yeah.
But it's just fine. It's a tough plant. I planted them as little, just the rhizome? Yeah, just the rhizome.
I think or tuber. I don't know which one.
It's a fleshy root.
Yeah.
A root with energy.
There you go.
Just stick it in the ground. It popped up some leaves. It's happy as can be. And then Asarum canadense we have in. I have a mouse. Why am I pointing at my own screen? Asarum canadense is in the sunken garden, and just look how that's filled in. So that I guess is a runner instead of a clumper. Most of these other ones will be clumpers, but that's just it's filled in so nicely. It has that big round leaf, a little bit of heart-shaped leaf, so good for. I don't know my star signs. Asarum hypogenum is almost like a cyclamen with that level of variegation coming in and out of the leaf. And then all these on the bottom are Asarum macranthum. And I had to pick 3 different pictures because it's like, wow, can you believe all that variation within one species? This is particularly, I've never seen this. All that venation on the veins.
It's crazy.
Variegation. Variegation on the venation.
Nice.
Last but not least, here in the top right, this is a particularly odd flower. I don't usually see that level of 2 different colors in these flowers, but Asarum maximum lingling has those. A lot of the other ones, you can take a look. They're these weird little, almost alien-like contraptions, and that's midsummer?
Sure, yeah.
In the mountains, it's midsummer.
Yeah, we did a Follow Your Nose tour back in May, and the native one was blooming then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So earlier here.
It's a very otherworldly flower.
I will put a picture in the recording. I'd have to dig it up. But every picture I've ever taken of those flowers, it feels like I'm not supposed to be taking a picture of it.
Yeah, it's a hidden.
They're buried in the
thing.
foliage.
Yeah. And you can't quite see in this picture, but maximum is called that for a reason. Those are big leaves. So another ground cover that can clump and look nice, but take up space relatively quickly. It's not as fast or aggressive as some of our other ones on this list, but it is nice. And you'll have to plant a couple to achieve this kind of effect. I wouldn't expect this out of just one, maybe 10, top 10 of them in there.
Yep.
You can fill in real nice like that. I think that's all I have for Asarum.
Cool, it's a great plant. Another one I want to talk about is Sedum aeruginatum echo Mount Emei. Emei?
I don't know.
That sounds good.
That does.
This is a particular genus that I do not care for. Sedums are very disappointing to me. A lot of the landscape ones you get, they get crown rot. They kind of get big and flop over. They just don't do what you want them to do. They don't look like they look in the plant catalogs or in the plant labels. This is a bomb-proof one. This is one that has these very small fleshy leaves. It forms a nice kind of mat, gets very, very low to the ground. I'm trying to remember where in the garden we have this planted. I can't remember
it's
where I
right
took this
next to
picture.
the Rubus Rolfii.
Yes, across from the geophyte border and Asian Valley, right along the edge there, growing very, very well. In the wintertime, when it gets a little bit cooler, those leaves will turn a little bit kind of a rusty red along the edges. And May to June, it has a really pretty kind of yellow flower, tiny little spikes that kind of cover it and give it kind of almost a glowing look to it. But man, this thing is a performer in the landscape in terms of kind of filling in those nice fleshy sedum leaves. Another kind of plant it and forget about it. This is not something that I would step on. I think you would destroy those crowns relatively easy. They would break up. But planted in the kind of the right space, it fills in those blank areas really, really well and gives you that. It's not just going to be a static green. You're going to get that shade of red in the wintertime and those pretty flowers in early summer. It's a really, really good performer.
And this is another one that doesn't require a lot of soil, right?
It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
I believe I've seen this on probably a different species, but on a rock covered in moss, and it's just growing on the moss.
Surely.
Yep.
We had Dahlia just drop a comment in the chat that she says it can just be dropped on soil or mulch and it spreads.
pretty much. It's a good one for that niche in the garden for certain. And here's a close up. We can really see those fleshy leaves and that dynamic. I wish I'd had the forethought to put in a picture with flowers because it is really attractive. It's worth a Google if you're interested in that.
Okay, hellebores, the genus being Helleborus. The main one that I wanted to talk about, pictured here to the right, I'm using my cursor, Helleborus fetidus. So the smelly hellebore. Not actually. Is it really fetid?
It's called stinking.
Yeah.
The foliage is kind of stinky.
The foliage, if you crush the foliage, if you're doing any kind of pruning, it does not smell wonderful. But like if you don't, if you won't smell it unless you're in it.
It's a horrible common name.
Yeah.
I could think of 20 other ones that we better suited.
I used to work at Pine Knot Farms, and like from a marketing perspective, calling it the stinking hellebore, you don't sell very many of them, but it's a wonderful plant.
It's my favorite hellebore.
Yeah.
And taxonomically, you'll remember it. I mean, So the attractive feature of this one might not be the smell, but it is the foliar texture. Foliage. It has that nice fine texture, and it's going to look good all year round. We are talking about evergreens, so that makes sense. And the flowers on it are not spectacular, but they do hold them higher than the average hellebore, so you will see them even if, I don't know if they have any colored ones out.
There was a red one, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Good luck finding that cultivar, but once upon a time there were colorful ones.
Yeah, and of course you can deep dive into hellebores. You could spend a whole lifetime with hellebores, but the benefit of the fetidus, besides the texture, is that they're easy to pull. So hellebores are pretty vigorous. The ones that aren't like overly hybridized, they tend to be pretty vigorous, so they'll seed around, they'll cross with each other. And you're not going to get crazy variation with these, but you will get a spreading ground cover that spreads via seeds and larger clumps. But with the hybridas, which is a species called hybrida because we got confused somewhere along the way, and we're just like, we're just going to put these in hybridas.
Yeah. Those,
once they root in, are pretty tough to dig. We had a class here digging out some hellebores, and they were going out with a pickaxe. So if you want a clump of hybridas, be certain. Plant one or two, you should be fine. But if you want to plant a bunch of different ones, expect that they will cross seed around.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
there are worse things to take over the garden than hellebores.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like them as a ground cover, the big sweeps.
Yeah. One thing about these fetidus is that the individual plants aren't as long-lived as the hybrids will be. So the way that this persists in the garden as a ground cover is by seeding it around.
Yep.
Like any individual plant will last maybe 3 years at most. So you're going to be constantly making new ones and stuff. But compared to the hybrids, that they just clump up over time, and that one individual plant stays.
Yeah. Do you happen to know if they? It feels wrong for me to ask. If they self, or do you need to plant multiple?
I don't happen to know specifically for Helleborus fetidus. I promise you that the hybrids, you can self them for sure. Yeah. There's a bit of physiological where like the female parts are receptive before the male parts open up to prevent self-fertilization, but you can collect pollen from itself and you can self them. And that's how they actually do the seed strains that you buy, is they get good ones and they self them repeatedly. I assume that because hellebores, they hybridize so readily, they're so easy to fertilize, I would assume the fetidus can be selfed.
But if you want them to persist, then you might go ahead and plant multiple.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And they seed in pretty regularly. They produce a lot of seed.
They do, and they're a wonderful pollinator plant. This is one of those things that it's in February, March, before a lot of flowers have opened up, you get a lot of bees coming in, and that's what's spreading the pollen around, making sure everything's spread around nice.
When there's not a lot of flowering going on.
Yeah, exactly. So
the last thing I forgot to mention, but it is important, is these are a woodland shade plant. So they can take that dry shade just fine.
Absolutely. I often think of them, of the fetidus, at like the edge of a woodland, usually. You don't want them getting full afternoon sun. That's too much sun for them, but morning sun is nice, afternoon shade is nice.
Yeah, much preferred. Next one that I'm up to talk about is Rubus rolfii. This is a landscape raspberry. And this is a great ground cover that has incredible texture, as you can see from this picture here. The new foliage is kind of a lighter green, and it turns more kind of a darker evergreen pineish color as the leaves mature. It produces flowers in the spring that are very inconspicuous. You really have to kind of hunt for them. They're kind of lost in the foliage, and they will in turn develop into little raspberries, and they're kind of a golden orange color is the best color I use to describe. And I love to ask Tim about it because he likes to pop them in his mouth.
Yeah, he does.
There's really, there's really not a lot of taste to them, but this is a ground cover that does well in less than nice soils. It's great for edges. It spreads by these kind of runners through the garden bed. This shot was taken in between the geophyte border and the top of Asian Valley. It is a plant that's native to Taiwan, I think, at higher elevations. But despite the higher elevations, it does perfectly fine here in our heat and humidity and our less than ideal garden soils. This is something that if you've got a spot that just kind of needs something to fill it in, this is a go-to plant for that. Just a close-up of that really kind of, I like to describe it as kind of, it looks like lizard skin.
Oh, yeah.
It's got that kind of reptilian look to it. Totally. And the underside of the leaf is kind of a nice white. Yeah. If you look closer there, you see the sedum mixing in with it. I think those are two kind of good companions with those textures.
Yeah.
But this is going to form a nice dense mat. There's not a lot that's going to come up in between it. The stems themselves take on kind of this tannish, dusty color to them, but this is another plant that I've grown to really like and appreciate here.
And no thorns, right?
No thorns, thornless.
And you might be wondering if you can see that texture from far away. And I'll tell you yes, because my dad and I were walking through Winterthur in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And we were coming down some stairs, and from 100 feet away, he said, "What's that over there?" And it was light reflecting off these leaves.
Yeah.
And instead of the bushes that were in the bed, we went up to this bed to see the Rubus rolfii. And so that's high praise. And sun to part sun?
Yeah, sun to part sun. It's a tough plant.
So speaking of tough plants, as long as rabbits aren't attacking your newly planted plants, but once you protect and establish these flocks, they are good to go. So up here we have Phlox nivalis camla, which was planted in 2006. This is a picture from 2009, nicely filling up under this rock. This is in our scree garden. So poor soil, well drained, hot and sunny, and flowering profusely. So it is happy. And then 8 years after planting, this is the picture of it in flowering. Woo! Yeah. That is a happy clump.
Very happy.
So I think this is all still one main stem, or does it root in?
I don't know.
No idea.
I'm going to say it roots in a little bit.
It looks like you can see kind of this main clump that was here, and maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 layers. It's layered in as it fell over, but it is woody. It is a sub-shrub.
Sure, yeah.
But it is less. It won't get over a foot tall, so it's still a ground cover for our purposes.
You get your money's worth with the flowers on that one.
Oh, yeah. And then Phlox subulata here in the bottom left, emerald blue. To the untrained eye, this looks very similar to this plant. And so I have an untrained eye because I think the same thing. It maybe has larger flowers.
It does.
And it looks like the clumps has spread much faster. This is probably about 3 times the size of this clump.
Okay.
So another great plant. It's not like this anymore, though, is it?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So maybe it just reached the end of its...
We need to pay it a visit.
Yeah. We'll pay it a visit. But look, I just love the Apuntia just coming out.
I like those two together,
honestly.
Yeah, cloud of phlox.
For sure.
And then, so these, Nivalis and subulata, Nivalis, poor soil and sun. Subulata, it likes well-drained but can handle more rich, also full sun, more rich soil, that is. And then here, bottom right, Phlox stolonifera, this is a more woodland species. And this is the last one that I wanted to mention that can handle some light foot traffic once it's established, because this is a true mat. These will crawl over each other, sending out stolons. If you put a small rock in the garden and think, oh, it's going to look so nice with that phlox just or going around the rock, you'll find that the phlox will go up the rock and you will no longer see the rock. But it's a vigorous spreader. It takes that part shade, woodland, doesn't need too much moisture once it's established, or like more moisture than we normally get. It's pretty drought tolerant,
Yep.
is what I'm trying to say. And look, it's a whole field of phlox stolonifera, wherever that picture was taken. Credit to NCSU.
Getting into a woody plant here, Sarcococa hookeriana variety Diguma. This is, common name for this is often called sweet box. And if you look really closely, you can see some flower buds here and here. This thing's claim to fame as kind of sneaky, but it has an extremely fragrant flower, hence the name sweet box. So early spring, they'll turn a little bit more white. It's not showy at all, but it is very, very fragrant.
Not everyone can smell it, we've found. Because
That's
some
true.
people come and say, this Sarcoca doesn't smell, and I've walked past like the same Sarcoca on campus.
And it knocks you down.
It does. So,
Yeah, I don't know. You have to be a true believer, I think.
Sure, and part of it is time of day.
That's true.
There was one day last year where it's like you could smell it really good in the morning, and then we had a plant lovers tour in the afternoon, and you couldn't smell it at all. And it was like,
Osmanthus is like that too.
no kidding.
you just got to whiff.
It's a little sultry.
Yeah.
It's a little sultry. There are 15 to 20 different species of Sarcococa, and this is one that's more compact, so it forms more of a ground cover. Here it is in Asian Valley doing its thing, and pretty dense shade. It's pretty dark in there. It can take, as Blake alluded to earlier, morning sun, but kind of a respite from the hot, beating, drying out sun in the afternoon. It does better in moist, well-drained soils, but it's a little bit forgiving, can be a little bit drought tolerant if it's in a better kind of a soil strata. We try to keep the leaves off of it because we don't want to choke out that foliage. And I like this because it's very inconspicuous. It does its job of filling in, forms a very nice mound, and then you have the benefit of that flower in early spring when things are just kind of waking up from the winter time. And this particular one is more compact. There are some that are a little more leggy, have more flowers, but I like this one to use as an evergreen ground cover.
And this is spreading underground, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Just useful to think about sometimes when you're weeding, if you don't know what a little sucker is.
Yes.
Just look.
Who you calling a sucker?
Exactly. Trachellospermum, had to include it. It was on the preview for this. But a great plant. Featured here, we have Asiaticum, Trachellospermum asiaticum. There is Trachellospermum jasminoides, but the ones that we have in the garden, I think, don't have as much visual effect as a ground cover as these two right here. There's also golden varieties, so pick your poison. They all seem pretty great. But in the top, we have Trachellospermum asiaticum Hatsuyuki.
Very
So
good.
this is one you can probably grab from your local nursery. Or is it tricolor? Either way, it's very similar to this effect, where the new growth pushes white with a little bit of dappled green and pink. And fun fact, the pink is anthocyanins that are a sunscreen for the plant. So to prevent new leaves from burning, there is a certain level of anthocyanins, and usually you can't see them because they have chlorophyll, but this plant has a mutation that doesn't push chlorophyll into the new leaves. So eventually it will just fade to green with a slight variegation, but you get this effect when all the new growth is pushing of, it's fairy-like, low to the ground, nice light colors, whites and pinks. And then here, Trachellospermum asiaticum nagaba. And this is by our visitor center. So when you guys are coming to Moonlight, and after you go through the scanning thing, if you look to your right, all along the ground is a sea of this cultivar. And it's lovely. And I have walked on it because we have a hose back there, and it seems to handle that just fine. Although I'd almost take back saying that because I wouldn't recommend walking on this.
I wouldn't recommend walking on it, but I have stomped through that to no end over the last 3 years, getting that hose, because that's where we water the plant cart. And I don't even think about it. I'm stomping and I'm rooting around, and but I don't think it could handle traffic per se.
No.
It handles us impatient gardeners quite well.
I wouldn't worry about planting it in a bed and then walking through that bed for your gardening needs.
Yes.
And I just love that variegation, and it's filled in really nicely. I've never seen it looking bad.
It's a tough plant.
So yeah. And then
Not sure how easy it is to propagate.
I don't know. I know Jasminoides is not bad because I do see it everywhere, and you can look into those too. And so these two species, Jasminoides and Asiaticum, will go up structures if you provide them structures and train them up structures, and they will flower a little more profusely. These two are fine in part shade. The Nagaba is in pretty decent shade for that tree.
It is.
And it's doing just fine. But they flower more profusely with some more sun, and these are star jasmine, so they smell nice too.
So getting into some of the grasses, we have a lot of different carex that we use, and this is a plant that I've tried every new one that's come out and have been pretty regularly disappointed in a lot of them. This is one that Tim has crowed about for years. And
Correctly so.
Correctly so. This is one of the best carex that I have seen. So much so that I'm going to get this for my home garden. This is Feather Falls, and this forms these nice mounds. It can take sun. The first picture was in the shade. This is right out at our front entrance, getting all that reflected heat off the road, all that reflected heat off the sidewalk. I don't think it's irrigated out there. We don't do very much with that at all. We keep the leaves and the trash out of those, but they form these beautiful, nice mounds and add a lot of color. Those very long leaves that are green with the edges that are white. I think Jim said there's a green one that's not named that is equally as nice, but it's not as flashy as this. But this is a plant that can take dry shade. It can take some sun. You don't really think of carex as being something that you want in the sun, but the breeding work on this one was done so that it could take some of those kinds of situations. To me, this is one of the best carex for the landscape out there, and it's fairly readily available in the nursery trade. Yeah. I know our good friends at Hoffman's grow this and sell it far and wide. I've seen it at Plant Delights. I've seen it at other garden centers. This is one that I highly recommend folks plant. It's a great carex for the landscape.
We actually took a field trip to Garden Treasures Nursery a couple months ago. Pat McCracken, plant legend, says that Feather Falls is one of his top 3 favorite plants.
How about that?
Which is crazy because Pat's a woody guy.
Yes.
And there's thousands and thousands of plants.
Yeah, yes, for sure. And he found a selection of Feather Falls that's even nicer than Feather Falls. Brand new. It pops more. I don't remember the name that he gave it.
Was it Moon Falls?
Moon Falls sounds right. It sounds like Moon Falls.
I'm writing that down.
Write it down.
Do we?
Yeah. For those of you that wanted to go on that trip but didn't, we had the opportunity to purchase some Moon Falls if we wanted to. He was mostly sold out of it already, but he allowed the J.C. Raulston Arboretum to purchase some.
It's an even thicker white variegation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's a whiter plant.
For sure.
And
as
the
big?
bigger didn't seem reduced.
Yeah, right, for sure. And again, Pat says Feather Falls, it's his favorite plant, and he says Moon Falls is even better.
Of course.
So get ready for that.
He's not one for sales tactics. He's not
right, honestly. No kidding.
Yeah. So onto my last plant. Regretfully, we did have to not speak of every evergreen ground cover because we only have an hour. Muehlenbeckia axillaris. This was a late addition because we were just walking around, and this is right near the entrance. So if you're coming off the brick circle, you're going to see this big mound of, this is called wire vine. And this is a broadleaf evergreen. You can see what it does. It sends out all these little narrow twigs with little circular leaves on it. And this is funny to me. This is Muehlenbeckia axillaris tricolor. And if you look really, really close, you could probably make out 3 colors.
Right there.
You could probably make out 3 colors. I mostly see green.
Yes.
And on the overview, you can't really tell. But tough plant. It is pretty aggressive. This is one that we cut back year to year just to keep it in one mound. It will crawl over anything. You can see it's eating up some spider lilies over here. So there was probably something else here originally, and it just grew right over it. It's another one that will kind of just layer over itself, which makes an interesting clump shape. And it can also be trained up structures.
And this is my last one. Evan and I took a walk to do something else. Actually, we took a walk to go to the sunken garden, which I think is an underutilized, not heralded enough little spot of the Arboretum to walk
Sure.
through.
Is that the one
That's
underneath
right
the
next to
Chinese
McSwain.
sassafras?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's my path to go harass Blake and Elizabeth because their office is down there.
Yes.
But there's a lot of
But
really
don't do
cool.
that.
Don't do that. There's a lot of really cool plants there. So this is right in front of the visitor center. This is Juniperus horizontalis, silver sheen. This is creeping juniper used kind of ad nauseum, almost too much in the landscape. It's a great plant to kind of hold soil in place. If you've got kind of a hill or an area that's hard to mow in your garden, this is often touted as a plant to kind of put there to replace turf grass and other things. But I love the silver texture of this, and I love that low growing matted nature to it. And any kind of woody plant that does that, I'm mostly I'm a plant geek to my core, but woody plants are the things that really get me excited and keep me up at night. And I like recommending woody plants. So, and this is a really good juniper. There are a couple of other ones that I thought about later that I would have liked to have recommended, but we don't want to talk all day long. We have things to do this evening. but this is a great one.
And you surely have things to do too.
Yes.
One thing I want to say about junipers that's relevant to the question of evergreen ground covers is junipers, although they are evergreen, they do change color during the year. Particularly, they put on a dormant color. The spring color is totally different than the fall color. And so, like, just because you have evergreen ground covers doesn't mean it's just going to be mute monotone all year. There's still some dynamism to it if you're paying attention over a long time frame.
Comes from the mouth of somebody that does bonsai. That's looking closely, but I always forget that kind of tidbit.
Yeah.
But it's a nurseryman long ago told me about that. Bruce Appledorn,
Sure.
A very famous conifer grower.
Definitely. And it's just a cute thing. Like, they're there for you in the wintertime, and it's just a whole new perspective on a plant that you probably take for granted usually. So
And if you look throughout all this juniper, you will see, you guessed it, Ajuga reptans, which brings us to a nice full circle moment here, where our last plant is growing in with our first plant.
And it's okay for things to do that. I like that homogenization.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Big words.
Love it. Let's get into some questions. How about?
Sure.
When we were talking about Ajuga, Irene says, I've seen Ajuga listed as a non-native invasive. Is there any evidence that it's invasive?
I don't think it is. I don't think it's on the, and I may eat these words later on. I don't think of it as an invasive plant because I don't see it escaped in urban landscapes like other things. Burning
really
bush.
Seed around.
No, like burning bush and Bradford pear and ligustrum. I don't see it like you see those sorts of things. It is aggressive. It will spread in your garden beds.
It's not considered invasive in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like different parts of North Carolina, I used to date a girl who lived out in the mountains, and in her yard, Ajuga was spready, and I never knew it as spready here. I never see it spreading here, but in other climates, they are going to behave differently. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So Annabelle wants to know, will any of these plants work up against large tree flares?
The Trichospernum was growing in that situation.
Vines are going to, and actually, that's a good. I'm glad you brought that up because some things you don't want to grow up your plants, and if you plant them too close to the bases, they will try to climb. And if you don't want that effect, they can choke small plants. But yeah, so I think any of the vining material you can train up because it doesn't need a lot of soil. You can train it up the tree roots, part of the trunk. Just keep an eye on it if you don't want it to take over.
Yeah, I would think the Ophiopogons would fit nicely in a little nook of a large root flare.
Yeah. For example.
Yeah, there you go.
Crepe myrtle. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so Barb was asking when you had the slide with the Helleborus fetidus up, she's asking what is the dark plant mixed in with the Helleborus fetidus, and I wasn't sure there was even multiple plants in that picture.
I think that was the Helleborus fetidus.
Indeed, that's what I thought was going on.
Well, I'll share
Let's see
again.
that. Let's see that.
And I'll use my...
There is a camellia in there. It all that dark foliage underneath is just little seedlings that are coming up.
Yeah, so these are the hellebore flowers.
Yes.
These light green, pale green, with the bract sepals also being there. The dark green is that awesome fetidus foliage I was talking about. Nice fine texture. And then back here is a camellia.
Okay.
And that
Beautiful.
should be it.
I bet she was asking about that foliage because it's a very stark contrast to the flowers. Very beautiful.
I think that's a contemplation garden, isn't it? Looks like it. Possibly.
Probably a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that camellia's
I'm not sure.
there.
But one thing I'm not sure that we mentioned was that those flower heads, they persist like a really long time, well past the point that they're actually done flowering. And then that contrast between those flowers and that foliage is just a really interesting thing to look at all year long.
It's another reason to like it.
Absolutely. For sure. So, Paul wants...
I wish I could just tell people where stuff is in the garden, but I'm not at Tim's level yet.
Sure.
Give it another 17 years and we'll see.
We'll get there.
Lucky.
We'll get you there. No worries. Paul wants to know, does feather falls have a tendency to revert to green?
I've not noticed it.
Yeah, no.
It's a stable plant. The breeding work on that was done well, and I've not seen it do that. It wouldn't be a terrible thing, but you want something that's going to perform as advertised, and I've not seen it.
Yeah, totally.
And I've seen it multiple places.
For sure.
And while we're talking about carex, you could look at a whole lot of carex as evergreen ground covers.
Honestly,
it's a great plant.
Absolutely.
Favorite.
Okay. Jared wants to know, how do you guys feel about Cotoneaster? He says he just planted Strebe's Findling cultivar this year and he's loving it so far. He's just not overly familiar with the genus, so he's hoping it earns its spot in his garden.
There are a lot of different species of Cotoneaster, and they are in the rosaceous family, so they can get fire blight and a lot of those associated diseases. They typically don't like our heat, but there are a lot that will do well, and that's kind of been a focus on some of the seed exchanges that we participate in. We've gotten a lot in that we're going to try to evaluate to see ones that do well. It's a plant that has typically a pretty foliage, nice red fruit. There are ground cover ones, there's weepers, there's small shrubby ones. There's a lot of different types. It's just a matter of evaluating ones that do well here. Typically, they don't do well in our part of in our zones, our neck of the woods, zone 7, zone 8. But there are some of those rare kind of ones that do. You see it a lot more in the mid-Atlantic, Northeast, those types of gardens. It's all over gardens in England. But it's just one that typically doesn't do well for us.
Sure.
Yeah, we picked out a bunch of seed in the exchange in 2024, and I think almost 30 species, and at least 2/3 of those germinated. So now we've gotten, I think, like 6 in the garden. I threw one in the flowering lawn. There's 2 out in the berms. And there's a few species that are speckled throughout the garden, and as those other ones continue to grow up, we'll throw them out into the garden. We'll plant them. We're not just going to throw them. And we'll see if they can handle it.
They can cut the mustard.
And in a few years, maybe we'll report back and answer your question even better.
For sure. And Jared did leave a comment there. He said when he saw it, he immediately thought it would be cool to wire up and train as a bonsai. And I will say I have seen Cotoneaster bonsai, and they're quite nice.
Very flexible.
Particularly with the fruit that gets on them. They look like tiny little apples. It's just a wonderful visual effect.
I've seen that in New York.
No kidding?
Stunning.
No kidding. Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
So good luck, Jared.
Yeah, good luck with that, Jared. Okay, Muriel wants to know which ground covers work well with bulbs.
Obviously ones that are going to peak above the foliage of what you're trying to grow through.
I got one.
Go.
Well, it's not a bulb, it's a corm, but a cyclamen with the acerem, because the cyclamen foliage looks a lot like the acerem foliage, but when you get the cyclamen blooms, they're up over the acerem blooms, and it's a little confusing if you don't know the plants, but it's very beautiful to see them juxtaposed like that.
Right in a pedestrian entrance.
That's a good mix. I like to do that with bulbs, to have that layer of stuff that comes up, and it also will will hide the foliage so that you don't have to worry about cutting it back.
Yeah.
You know, species things, I think some of the species tulips would work well with a lot of these, and there any kind of daffodil, there's every size you can think of.
Sure.
I say go crazy and do it.
Yeah.
I think almost most of what we talked about would be fine. You know, the juniper is going to be a little bit harder. It's woodier. It's going to have bigger stems underneath. You know, the mondo grass, I think that would work well with some smaller bulbs, like snowdrops and things like that.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Griffin and Joe both want to know what you think about Creeping Jenny.
So that was going to be one of my honorable mentions, 7. And so the conclusion that we came to before we made our final selection was that it's more aggressive than what most people want.
Yeah.
It can quickly fill a large space, and it does have that nice golden color. The Aurea cultivar, that's Lysimachia numularia aurea, is a very popular one for its golden color, and it's better than other weeds and having to mulch a large area, but be prepared for how fast it spreads.
It's used a lot in containers because it can spill over, but often it'll take over the whole container. I had window boxes on our house when we bought it, and that was one of the plants that was in the window box, and I didn't do much with them. That still is alive and thrived, and where it weeped over my deck and pieces would fall off, it would root in the ground underneath it. So it can be a bit more aggressive than you might want. And in that situation, it's going to be a little more roguish. You might have to rip it out.
Okay. Well, those are some really great plants, honestly. You gave us a lot of things to work with and try. So really, really wonderful. Thank you so much, Evan and Greg, for pulling together this presentation. It was truly wonderful. Yes, indeed. Y'all deserve that handshake for sure. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Midweek program. We will be back next week. We'll be talking about fruit trees.
That's right.
We'll be talking about fruit trees with Bernadette and Mike and Greg, and it's just going to be a beautiful time. So
Two incredible human beings.
Indeed, for
3.
sure.
3. Well, okay.
Well, yeah,
I'll take that.
honestly.
I'll
for
take
sure.
that.
We'll see y'all next time. Y'all take care.